Welcome everyone. My name is Meie Van Laar and I am Head of Education and Research at NEMO Science Museum in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Our museum has its roots almost 100 years ago, and we have grown from a museum of labor to a science museum with over 5,000 square meters of exhibition space. Until the COVID crisis broke out, beginning of this year in Europe, we received more than 650,000 visitors a year. And our audience consists of a mix of tourists, students, and families from all over the world. Today, I would like to talk to you about our journey to a more diverse and inclusive museum. In our museum, that journey already started more than 10 years ago. And I would like to give you an idea of the time it takes to change and the little baby steps that we call success. First of all, I would like to take you back to the year 2009. At that time, in our museum, gender was still framed as the difference between the two sexes, boys and girls, and we were looking for ways to involve more girls into science topics. We developed our first gender program and we called it the Gender Checklist. This was a booklet for science centers with tips and tricks on how to involve more girls into STEM-related topics. At that time, we had no experience with this topic, so we worked with, in cooperation with other national organizations who were more experienced. In retrospect, this gender checklist was actually more a sex checklist. But developing this checklist did make us look differently at our exhibitions. We learned how to make our exhibitions more inclusive and more accessible for both boys and girls. At the same time, we were experimenting with new formats to interest more teenagers for STEM-related topics. We already knew that the best way to engage a group is to use formats that suits a specific target group. And at that time, we were partner in a European project called GAP, where we developed a contest for teenagers around STEM careers. YouTube and online video started to gain a lot of traction, and teenagers were using it more and more. Therefore, we developed a program in which teenagers had to make a short movie about a STEM job. With the use of video, we hope to reach out to more people, especially people that wouldn't otherwise be interested in STEM topics. And this was the project To Your Future. Over the years, we gained more expertise and we started a project called Spot Your Talent. This was a project for primary education, where we work together with other partners with expertise on this topic. Instead of interviewing role models, as we did with the To Your Future project, role models were invited to the schools to tell about what they do for a living. Students could ask them questions, and both projects, both To Your Future and Spot Your Talent, were a success because the children saw their future opportunities by meeting these role models. In 2015, the European project Hypatia was granted. This project gave us 3 years of funding to work with other organizations towards a more gender-inclusive museum world. NEMO was coordinator for the European consortium, and with this project we aim to develop a toolkit with practical solutions and modules with attention for gender inclusion for schools, companies, and science centers and museums across Europe. With this project, we wanted to attract more teenagers to choose for a STEM career. In the first year of the project, we learned that the differences between sexes are smaller than the differences within the sexes. We learned about the gender spectrum, where you have boyish girls and girlish boys and everything in between. And that to create inclusive STEM education, you need to develop education that engages everyone. We also learned the importance to involve your target group and the community around them to make sure that the developed materials fits the need of the target group. And therefore, in the Hypatia project, where teenagers were our target audience, we worked together with the teenagers, but also with the schools, the parents, industry, local government, and academics to promote gender-inclusive STEM education and communication. And in this project, we defined 4 levels in which people can be engaged. We call them the 4 levels of involvement. You start with the individual level. This is the environment of the individual themselves, and their own values and knowledge are the base for their choices. The interactual level is the level where participants do activities and assignments in interaction with others. This is the way they form new opinions. Then you have the institutional level. Each place has a certain culture, and the organization that people are surrounded by shape their vision and their ideas. And then you have the societal level or the cultural level. And each and every society has certain commonly agreed values. And these conditions are the conditions we can't change straight away by doing one project, but we can influence them over time by all the choices we make together. So how can this be implemented? Some examples. The individual level, that means offering activities that participants can do. For example, activities you can find in our Hypatia toolkit. The interactional level, there you can think of training of explainers in a museum or teachers at the school. This third level is how to address people. For example, the Dutch railway announcements to the public used to start with ladies and gentlemen, and now it is changed to dear travelers. And in our museum, we used to say, ladies and gentlemen, NEMO will close in 10 minutes. And now we say, dear visitors, NEMO will close in 10 minutes. And then the cultural level, or the societal level. How do we reach society? Well, through our Kennislink website, we have articles about the science behind the news. And in this way, we try to influence society. In the Hypatia project, we learned a lot, and not only how to develop inclusive educational materials, but also how to make our organization more inclusive. It became actually the turning point for our organization to become more inclusive. And during these years, starting at 2009, we also joined a consortium of people working on diversity in their organization. This consortium broadened our insights on diversity even more. We became aware that diversity was not only about differences in gender, but also differences in culture, accessibility, and sexuality are examples of all the different aspects you have to take into account. In the period of 10 years, we have gained expertise on diversity, and we have learned the importance of awareness on diversity and inclusion. In 2019, we opened our most recent exhibition in the museum, Humania, and this is an exhibition focused on humans in all their forms. After 10 years of learning about diversity in programs, this exhibition was for us a perfect time to tackle inclusivity and diversity and use all the knowledge we had collected over the years. So we have built this exhibition with input from various groups from society. We were aware of the cultural differences, the accessibility of the exhibition, and the different meaning of, for example, objects in different parts of the world. But most important, we actually changed the exhibition with the input of these focus groups. And the exhibits were tested until it worked for everyone. So now we are ready to take the next step in our journey to embed diversity and inclusion in our museum organization. And to make sure that this doesn't depend on the projects that we are currently running, it needs to be the base of how your organization works. We as a museum have not reached that point yet, but we are taking steps in the right direction. In the past 10 years, we have gained a lot of expertise about the point that we need to consider. In the Netherlands, we work with the diversity code. We work along 4 pillars to embed diversity and inclusion in an organization and in our society. These 4 pillars are public, program, partners, and personnel. Now we are trying to implement this in our multi-year policy and vision statement for diversity and inclusion in our organization. So public, what is public? Well, we want to be there for everyone. Everyone is our audience, and we can only be there for everyone if we actively involve people in the development of our products. Because you do not know what you do not know, and you cannot decide for someone else. For program, we want our program to be inclusive as possible. This means that we involve our target groups in the development of our programs and that we let our target group also test it. So take your target audience seriously and only test if you really have the intention to incorporate the findings in your final product. The P of partners. We choose the partners we work with based on our activities and when we have an aligned vision regarding inclusiveness. And personnel, the staff you work with, you show the inclusiveness of your organization. We are increasingly trying to become an organization with employee demographics that reflect society. This can be done, for example, by paying extra attention to the text in job descriptions. So to summarize, is inclusive and equitable science education possible? I would say yes, it is, but it takes time, awareness, and motivation. And 4 points that may help you. First of all, just start. Even when you do not have all the expertise you want, experimenting is always the way to go. Role models. Role models are so important to use. As teenagers, especially teenagers, they need people they can relate to. Third, work together with your target group. That is really important. You have to involve them, you can learn from them, and you have to take them seriously. And then last but not least, be aware of your own imperfections. Consult others, because insights from viewpoints others than your own always improve the product. Thank you for listening.